Hello everybody and welcome to this week's instalment of the Sulky Show, and we have an all-star cast this week. Sarah is back with us. She stood me up last week, she's back, but I believe she's going for afternoon tea en route to Corby Wood.
Yes,
right?
I am, yeah.
Yeah. And are you paying for this?
No, I am not paying for this. This is an early birthday treat from Mr. Smart, hopefully. He's not aware of this yet, but hopefully that's how it pans out.
Is that the same Mr. Smart you've just sent packing? Then get out of my way, keep the noise down.
Yeah, I don't want him in the background of any of these videos because, first of all, he laughs when I say things he doesn't agree with, which is most of the time, and he'd be really huffy if I tipped a horse that he fancied. So he's just been sent out of the room. He's a distraction.
And now I see your Corby Wood better half is with you today on the Sulky. The one and only Charles Inglis. Good afternoon, Charles.
Good afternoon, Darren.
Yeah, and may I congratulate you two on the Chico and Sarah show, and I believe you're race sponsors tonight at Corby Wood.
Yes, we're sponsoring 2 races tonight.
Yeah, part 1 and part 2 we've named them. And we're sandwiching the card as well. I noticed we sponsored the first race and the last race. So,
and look at this. We have a sportsman with us today. It's the one and only ace driver himself, Grant Cullen. Good afternoon, Grant.
Good afternoon, Dan.
Looking forward to the weekend. Yeah, I see you've got quite a few drives. Corby Wood tonight, York tomorrow.
Yeah, I think we have 5 tonight, 2 tomorrow at York. So busy enough weekends. Looking forward to it.
And we're trying to get you some drives at Amman Valley on Sunday.
As long as somebody pays the diesel.
Right, okay. On a serious note, guys, first of all, let's just start this week's Sulky show with the news that of the passing of David Morton. David Morton, a stalwart on the harness racing scene for many decades. And in recent years, remembered as the owner of Stone Rigs Mystery, but he did so much for the sport. Very, very passionate about harness racing, great supporter. And guys, you're on the Scottish circuit, and David will be sorely missed.
very much so, very, very much so. Charles, you obviously you worked with David Morton and his horses quite a lot around Corby Wood.
Yeah, but that's like a big loss to British racing.
Definitely.
And I've spoken to Ryan O'Neill actually today, and we're going to put a tribute out on the VHRC website later, and we'll put a tribute in the calendar, the September calendar. But yeah, a major loss to British harness racing. And just raising the spirits now. Let's talk about the Chico and Sarah show. Whose idea was this, or did it just happen by accident?
I mean, I think it happened by accident, I think. I don't know, is it my fault or is it your fault, Charles? I don't know.
You mentioned it at York.
Did I? Oh, I did. Yeah. No, I did mention it at York, yeah.
I was like, what's happened here?
I may have accidentally wrote Charles into this. I like to do a review after racing. I like to talk about things. I prefer doing a review to a preview because with a preview, I have to try and pick winners. With a review, I can just talk about who actually won. So I don't look quite so much of an idiot after the event as I do before the event. And obviously Charles has thrown himself right in at the deep end this year as the commentator at Corby Wood. First season doing it, absolutely just jumped in with both feet. And I thought, well, he's seeing all of the races from what I believe is the best seat in the house, really. He's got a cracking view of every race, and he's committing those races to memory once they've happened. So I was like, right, Charles, come on, let's do this. And I mean, we've only done it twice, but I feel like it's snowballing already. People are really enjoying it.
No, it's great. The bit of banter, great insight into the racing. I'm really enjoying it. And you mentioned about Charles commentating. Charles, how did that happen?
Well, David Douglas, who was a commentator for years at Corby Wood, said he was retiring this year, and we never had a commentator. So I'd said that I would do it for one of the qualifying nights. And Sarah loved it, and other people loved it, so I just continued doing it.
And was it something you'd ever thought about in the past, race calling?
No, definitely not. It was nerve-wracking.
I mean, because it was something personally speaking, it's something that I wanted to do as a kid when I was in high school. Used to rush home, watch the racing on the television, pretend it was Peter O'Sullivan. But yeah, and I've got to say, you're coming over really well. And the one thing that you have no trouble with whatsoever is identification. I've been really impressed with that.
Yeah, like I know most of the drivers, so as long as you know the drivers, like what they're driving, I think that's the most important bit to make it easier. I mean.
Yeah. The thing is, though, you can't say it's Grant Cullen from Willie Drysdale with Steve Lees in third. It's a case of a signals colours with the horse's name.
Yeah, but I can recognise the drivers' colours and I know what they're driving, so that's how it makes it easier. I'm not looking forward to the French Jotters tonight. Like
I was gonna say we've really, things have gotten very difficult very quickly. Easy first 2 weeks at Corby Wood, 5 races. You know, all kind of regular Scottish horses. We only had one person coming up from England to race, which is Joseph Riley with their paparazzi. So Charles has not only known all the drivers, he's known all the horses. Then we advertised for this trot. We thought we'd maybe get 4 horses, maybe 5. We thought Trot Britain would be quite happy to let us run with a small field like that. 7. We've got 7 French trotters tonight, and 5 other races. I think are basically all full races in each race. So this is the real test tonight, Charles. Have you been practicing the French?
Yes, I have actually.
You'll be fine, Charles. You'll be fine.
I've translated some of the names to English.
Okay.
Just call them their names.
Are you going to use them? Are you going to call them by their English names then?
I don't. I'm not planning on doing it, so hopefully not.
And of course, the thing about race calling, Charles, is once you've called one race, you've got to erase that from the memory.
Yeah.
And then focus on the next race. That's the thing about it's a case of having a decent short-term memory.
Yeah, you've got to forget one race and then remember the next race quickly.
Yeah, and I tell you, I've been really impressed with the Australian race callers. When I've been to Australia, and they have a race card there, and they don't have the colours as we have. We have the colours painted out in our cards.
Right.
It's great the way they just memorise the colours.
Yeah.
I was calling a race at Melton a few years ago, and it was about 5 or 10 minutes before I was calling this race. These horses were coming out onto the track. But the trouble is that the judge's box was next door, and this guy, he was the judge, and he was ever so friendly. And I didn't want to, I wanted to sort of be sociable, and he was talking to me, and I was thinking to myself, will you shut up? I need to have a look at the 10 horses that are out on the track, because I didn't know them. 10 Australian horses, which I didn't know. But he was being ever so friendly, and all of a sudden they're scoring up, and I didn't have a Scooby. I did not have a Scooby what these horses were. And there were no so I had to bluff my way through it,
I'm sure you managed.
Well, another thing that was quite comical, whereas at a lot of our tracks now we have a mic attached to the headset.
Yes.
The guy at Melton, a guy called Dan Malicki, who incidentally was the youngest person ever to call the Melbourne Cup, but he's so passionate about harness racing. He's now Harness Racing Victoria's race caller. And incidentally, he's got one ambition in life, to come over and call the Grand National. But he is the voice of harness racing in Victoria. And he has his mic on his tripod under his binoculars. So it's not attached to the headset. Well, I'm holding the binoculars like this, and then I'm looking away. So as I look away, I'm moving away from the mic. So every now and again, they're losing what I'm actually saying. I was walking away from the mic. It was, it was scary.
We don't need binoculars at Corby Wood, like.
No, that's one thing. You can see all of the track the full way around anyway. Yeah. All you need to do is make sure tonight that Hayley, when she's working the camera, right before the 5th race of the Trotters, just tell her to be quiet and not distract you at all so you can get in the zone with these French names.
Right.
And the thing is, Charles, I mean, it's an easy job at Corby Wood tonight because all you got to do is know Grant Cullen.
Yeah.
We're predicting a good night for you, Grant, by the sounds of it.
So we'll get Grant for a trotter.
I know, that's the one. The only race you're not driving in is actually the trot, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is the trot, yeah.
Have you driven before?
I've never drove a trot on a race yet. Walked a couple out around Corby Wood before for Josh Cash when he had one, but never drove on the race yet.
Right, okay. So this is our opportunity to say, right, guys who've got trotters at York, because you're often at York, if they're coming to Corby Wood again, you are available for a drive on a trotter.
Well, I've probably got other ones anyway.
Sarah, more importantly, we've got a multi-race coming up from York, and I believe Grant can do the weight.
Yeah, he doesn't seem overly confident that he can, but I think that the weight that you're at, Grant, you probably could do a saddle race. You could do the Monty race at York. Whether you want to is another matter.
I've never ever liked being on the back of a horse. Sitting behind, love it. Sitting on the back, no chance.
Too high up.
Too high up.
Does it?
So we'll put you down as a maybe then, yeah?
Yeah. Thanks very much for the enthusiasm there, Grant. Looking ahead to tonight's Corby Wood card, you've got a nice book of drives, 5 drives to look forward to. Can you just run through those drives at Corby Wood, please? Starting with True Matter.
True Matter in the first race. I've never driven him before. He's only had 2 lifetime starts for Gregor. Went nice both times. Good run at York and then backed up with a win at Corby Wood. He's trailing 10 yards tonight. Bit of traffic problems maybe, but if he can get round the inside and sneak away, I think he's probably not be far away from at least getting a place, I would think.
Okay. And then what about the stables? Genie's Lady, the 3-year-old Art Professors. Only had the 1 start so far.
Yeah, raced 2 weeks ago at Corby was very inexperienced. It was a very fast half that night in the first meeting at Corby. She should strip fitter for the race and be a little bit better. So we're hoping for a half decent run. She's in the Dragon next week at the Prince, so we're just hoping that tonight will be just another stepping stone to bigger and better things, hopefully.
Okay, and then we move on to Kruger again. What can you tell us about Kruger again?
Same as True Matters, never driven him before, never even sat on him. He's got a bad draw, he's drawn 6. I think he's more a front runner, going by what the owner has told me. So we'll just try and save as much ground as possible for them. Again, going by Chico's review, or he should be running on at the death, so we'll hope that he is.
Okay, right. So obviously Chico's going to be ready to call that horse in the closing stages.
Well, hopefully anyway, yeah.
And then Kick Up the Dust, the horse we've seen a few times at York this season, Son of Better's Delight. What are your thoughts about Kick Up the Dust's chances?
Again, he's the same as Kruger again, drawn 6, so it's going to be another one that's kind of where do I go from the start, either go forward. And you got a parting ticket last week when Corby, which is a tough thing to overcome. He ran on a bit of the death, but we're really happy with his first start at York this year, and then ever since then he's just hasn't really kicked on. He's kind of took backward steps. So we've changed a few things, and we'll try and give him as easy a race as possible and try and get him running on at the end, because he seemed quite strong last week.
And then finally, Reed Shoefly.
Shoefly, Hugh Mingus drove her last week. I drove Living Star. He says he wasn't too hard on her just because she was stuck in behind horses. And she went good at York, but she was parked in a 27 quarter in the mares race, and for the first start of the season, it kind of really bottomed her a bit. So I've tried to be a bit soft on her the last couple of weeks. She worked nice during the week, so we're hoping for another good run in that race as well.
So of those 5 drives, which one would you be, shall we say, more confident of sort of greeting the judge with?
I'm not very confident in any of them. Genie's Lady's got the best draw. At least she's got the gate. She's the only one I've got the gate tonight with. So in that respect, I would hope she could get away near the front. A Kick Up the Dust can run like he ran at the first week at York. He should be there or thereabouts. But he's been disappointing the last couple of weeks, so I'm hoping for better things. If I can get the rail with him for a while, I'll be confident again running into a place.
Okay, we'll come to the York card shortly. Chico, you've done the form guide for tonight.
Yes.
So come on, let's have your best bets for tonight's card at Corby Wood.
Today's a holiday in the first race.
Definitely, I'm 100% with you that one. We talked very highly about today's a holiday last week. Today's a holiday. Second behind you, Grant, I think, was it with Laneside Logic? Was that the race?
Yes.
Yeah. The second last week, yeah.
Yeah, Laneside Logic was a winner last week and was a very, very fancy horse in the race as well. But today's a holiday, I was really impressed. Like Charles said, good gate speed, which is something you really need at Corby Wood. So I'm with you on that one, Charles.
Is that going to be the best bet of the night?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. I think so. It was very impressive last week. I think it takes beating tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think.
Deal on vacation would be my next best.
Which one?
Deal on vacation in race
Okay.
4.
Yeah. And why would that be?
Well, it ran good at York, first meeting, its first run of the season. Then it won 2 weeks ago at Corby Wood from the F seat, and it's drew 1 tonight. So it's a big advantage for it.
I think that's going to be a very fast first 8 to a mile in that race.
Yeah.
I know that they talk up Saunders Hoochie, they always say if she leads, she's hard to beat. David Moncrief definitely won't take back the bet aim. Keir Cabman from our stable, he's got Rocker driving him tonight. I know that he can leave a gate fast, so that's going to be a very fast first 8, and it could be whatever leads to that corner could take a lot of beating in that race.
So a lot of speed on it, a lot of speed.
Yeah.
So they'd be the 2 best bets, would they, Charles?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sarah, anything to add?
Well, I've got high hopes tonight for Joseph Riley and Air Paparazzi. And I'm driving this poor boy insane. He says that all I do is put pressure on him. Air Paparazzi's had pretty poor draws the last couple of starts at Corby Wood. I think it was drawn 3 on a 10-yard trail 2 weeks ago, and then last week drawn 7 of 7, or 6 of 6, whatever it was. But it's had the worst draws. First 2 starts this week has landed drawn 1 on the gate. I'm mounting that pressure because on both occasions the horses finished quite strongly. He was 4th on his first start and then 2nd last week, and finished very, very strong behind Stash the Cash, who's also in the race, but it's 10 yards behind him this week. So I think if Paparazzi can get away, this is the first chance we get to see if Paparazzi's got gate speed, which is something that Grant will tell you, and Charles as well, because they've been racing Corby all their lives. Gate speed is paramount to Corby Wood. If you can lead out, you then become a very difficult horse to beat. It's imperative. I mean, there's only 2 horses on the gate anyway, so Brian Gilvia drives ATM. I don't know whether that's a nod there, the fact that Hugh has taken stablemate Stash the Cash, whether he thinks his best chances are actually on the 10-yard trailer. I would imagine that Brian's going to go forward on ATM, so we're going to see if Paparazzi has got that toe to leave the gate. I believe he's a strong enough horse to finish. He will come off that last bend and stay on down the home straight. But I'm supporting Paparazzi tonight. Charles has called him the English Raider the last 2 weeks because he's been the only English horse on the card. And Joseph said to me, or maybe Charles will get to say the English Raider has won tonight, but there's that many English Raiders this week that he's kind of getting lost in that group of traders and drivers. But no, Air Paparazzi is my quiet fancy for the meeting in the Chico and Sarah show part 2, high grade pace at the end of the last race on the card. So.
Can you repeat the name of the race?
The Chico and Sarah show part 2. The Chico and Sarah show part 1 is the maiden and novice at the start of the card. That's what these horses. I hope this is what goes down on the BHRC website as the official name of the race as well. We're being advertised here, Charles.
Yes, it is it's on the start sheet.
It's on the start sheet. It should be on the official results.
The only thing on the BHRC website, it says the Chico and Sarah show part grade 3 to 7 pace. So I don't know what part it is.
We've lost part 2. There'll be multiple parts. We'll probably keep doing this. Part 2 has kind of got lost in translation there a little bit, but it is, race 6 is part 2, race 1 is part 1.
Right,
So,
this is going on YouTube. There's going to be a lot of people out there that don't know much about Corby Wood. So, right, I want you 3 now to sell Corby Wood. First of all, just tell us about the track itself, the size of the track, the circumference.
Who's going first?
It's a third of a mile.
Yeah, it's 3/8 of a mile for a lap. You start at the top of the back straight, and it's 3, and you finish almost at the top of the home straight. Can be very, very tactical to drive. It's only 4 wide, so it's not quite as big as York and Prince. Can get a bit tight for room, especially the last quarter of a mile when people are trying to get through. Tactics do play a big part at Corby Wood. It's not. Anytime I've been to York or Prince, tends to be the best horse wins because they're just fast races. Whereas Corby Wood, you can get 6, 7, 8 to 1 shots can win just because the driver gets the tactics right on the front, and it makes for more exciting racing, I think.
It's about luck in running.
It is. It's very hard to get a gap the last quarter of a mile if you've not made an early move. But the risk is if you take that early move, you can be hung out to dry in Corby Wood, and it's a long old road.
And tell us about the surface.
The surface is good this year. There's loads of surface there. It's a red ash surface. It's it is a good surface. It's plenty of cushion for the horses now. It does, and it seems to be a fast surface. When it's actually wetter, it seems to be a lot faster. It goes a bit more kind of packed in, and the horses seem to go over it a bit better.
It's very, very well maintained track as well. Obviously, because Corby Wood is a training establishment as well for a number of trainers, it's in the best interest of those people stabled at Corby Wood to have that track in good condition 12 months of the year. I've seen it in the middle of winter when my own track at home, which is, I've got the same surface, or I did have the same surface in my track at home. We had real problems with freezing ground during the winter because of the temperatures out here, but over at Corby Wood, it was milder anyway in general, but that track is constantly being maintained by the likes of Eck Taylor and Les Donaldson and Marky Kennedy and there's all these different people that kind of chip in to make sure that track is able to be used 12 months of the year. Then once you get to the racing, obviously because they're maintaining it, they're training the horses there themselves. The SHRC and the people who train elsewhere and get to use the track for workouts and then race on it, they feel the benefit of how well maintained that track is. So it's, I took a picture last week. I put it on as the Red Mile. Obviously, it's not a mile, but it's technically a race over a mile, so that was my excuse. But it did. I was impressed. I was particularly impressed with how good the track looked last week, and it looked like it raced well as well. So there's no complaints coming from kind of drivers coming off the track or trainers at the moment. It's there's, like as Grant said, there's a bit of cushion in it as well. It is that little bit loose at the moment. It's looking good. It's definitely looking good.
I know we're racing behind closed doors at the moment, but that's the one thing that's always struck me about Corby Wood is the following, the die-hard following. It's just great, loyal following of harness fans week in, week out at Corby Wood. Let's hope we can get them in through the turnstiles sooner rather than later.
Definitely. It's, I've only been going there for the last 6 years, and I'm always amazed by how there's a nucleus of people, not just horse owners and trainers, there's a nucleus of people that follow the racing there, that come every week. The gambling side of it is a massive part of Corby Wood. There's a very, very healthy betting market at Corby Wood, despite the fact that there are only 3, sometimes 4 bookmakers there. Having a bet is a large part of the kind of culture of racing at Corby Wood. The bar is a great place to go. There's the people that come week in, week out that take a seat in the bar. You've got the glass-fronted bar to watch the racing from. And there's always a good atmosphere, even on quiet nights. Once you get to the bigger meetings like the Murdoch weekend, the atmosphere there is second to none, and very, very friendly people. We've had international visitors at Corby Wood from Australia, New Zealand, Finland, America, and as soon as they see a new face at Corby Wood, there are certain people that will just make a beeline for them. I am one of them. I tend to drag visitors out into the middle of the track for photos after races for no reason other than I can. One thing I do have to mention about Corby before we move on to York is just the sheer number of volunteers that are based, behind the scenes that get racing on. Charles and me were going through all the different people the other night because I was going to take some photos, kind of introduce the team. There are so many people, that have got a hand in making sure that racing goes on at Corby Wood. Members of the club, committee members, just people. Everyone's kind of willing to say, right, I'll help with something. Give me a job to do. I'm one of them, really. I turned up at the first meeting, I found myself with 2 red flags because the starter couldn't go in the back of the starter car. So if there was a no start, I was to be the flag waver. Thankfully, there were no false starts, so I didn't have to wave my flags. Last week, I was the judge for one of the races. There's people that are just willing to put themselves forward to make sure that racing go ahead at Corby Wood, and I they're not always kind of recognised for the work that they do. But I think on behalf of the SHRC members and the people who race at Corby Wood, I'd like to say thank you to everybody who gives up their time and puts so much effort into making sure that racing can happen in Scotland.
Oh, well said. Well said. Now, just turning to Grant again, we've grilled you about your Corby Wood drives. Before we go on to York, just tell us a little bit about yourself, Grant. Come on, this is your opportunity now. You're going to be on the world stage. Sell yourself there. So this time next week, you'll be at the Meadowlands with a full book of drives. Sell yourself, Grant. First of all, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Obviously, you come from the harness racing background.
Yeah, Dad's trained horses for as long as I can remember. He had horses when I was a kid. Always brought up with him. And just got the bug, kept going.
And in terms of you're driving, how many years have you now been on the circuit driving yourself?
I think this is my 11th year driving. Yeah. Makes me feel old, that.
And what about you? You know, do you keep a tally of your successes? I mean, how many winners have you had in your career?
Oh, I don't know. I remember I kept track of my first 100,
Right.
and then I remember getting my 100th winner, and then after that, I lost track.
And
What was your
sorry, Charles. What was that?
What was your 100th winner?
I think it was Springfield Gem at Corby Wood. I had 3 in the one night, so I ended up on 101, but I'm sure she was the middle one, was 100.
And what about your first winner? What was that? And how old were you?
I was 16, and it was Sovereign Howard at Corby Wood, for Stuart McCall, who I'm driving Kruger again for tonight. So hopefully that history can repeat itself tonight, actually.
And what about career highlights?
I've won a few. I won the Sire Stakes last year at Corby Wood for my brother. So that was good to get that, just because it was kind of a family thing to win the Sire Stakes. I've won a few Hawfield finals. I've won a Bellsfield final. I've won, actually one of them good ones I liked. As you said earlier about David Morton, I drove Jack's Red for Davy and Charles and the 2-year-old at Corby Wood. It was the BHRC Futurity, and we got up in the dying strides, and there's a photo somewhere. It's a really good photo of me, James Haythorne, mate, Jack's Red Porcelain Sealster, and I've got it somewhere, and it's a really good photo. And that race always stuck me. I really enjoyed winning that one.
And have you driven abroad?
Never driven abroad. Only even in Britain. I've never even made it to Ireland yet.
Right. You've been to England though, haven't you?
Been to England a few times, Been to England a few times.
And what about ambitions? I mean, there must be some ambitions out there. I mean, what are you hoping to do? What are you hoping to achieve?
Being Scottish, Musselburgh's the big one for me. I just about won the Hurricane a couple of years ago, got nabbed on the line. But Dad won the famous Musselburgh Pace, so as a trainer, so my target is to try and win that, hopefully at some time.
Yes, yeah. And then of the drivers, the older drivers on the circuit, I mean, which drivers have you aspired to be like? Which drivers do you look up to?
Try and take different traits from everybody. Alan Haythorne, mate, I always liked watching Alan because he never looked like he was doing anything, but his horse was always in the right position. And it was always, if the horse was good enough, 9 times out of 10, Alan had it bang in the position. Mick Lord, very much the same. Rocker seems to drive the same now. If he's on the best horse, you tend to find him right in the position that he needs to be. So, to try and follow the guys, you want to try and get in amongst them as much as saying that you're following them, but at the same time, sometimes you have to stand back. You see drives and you say, "Wow, I don't know how we managed that."
And do you have a favourite horse that a horse that you're really fond of, a horse that you have a lot of satisfaction out of driving, or you have it over the years?
I really liked Another Man. He came along right at the correct time for me. I was just starting to get into the bigger races, and he was a horse that he would take me in the gaps instead of me driving him through them. He showed me how to race, kind of thing, which is, I suppose it sounds strange, a horse doing that, but they become that experience that they know when it's time for them to go. And he taught me a lot of things in that regard. I like driving all the horses, to be fair. I just like driving. I like being out there, being competitive, trying to win every race, regardless if it's a 20-1 shot or a 1-2 favourite. You have to drive all of them with the same enthusiasm and always have hope that you're going to win.
And of the internationals, the international drivers, presumably you watch a fair bit of harness racing from around the world. Which international drivers do you admire most of all?
I always liked Brian Sears was always one for me. He was very much the same as I said about Alan Haythorne, mate. He never seems to be too flashy or anything kind of thing, but he's always right in the mix. He always wins the big races when he's called upon. I never knew much about Dexter Dunn until he came to Ireland, but you watch him driving in America now, he's just unreal, the stuff that guy can do. So you just try and copy the guys as much as you can and take as much of their skills into you as much as you can, but ultimately it all comes down to the guys have just got the better hands.
Now, talking of international racing, you're going abroad tomorrow. You're going to England tomorrow. You're going to York. You've got a drives, Laneside Logic and Living Star. Just tell us a little bit more about those two drives in the last couple of races.
Laneside Logic is in race 7, drawn 3 in the gate, I think. He is 2 for 2 so far for his career. Won nice at York and he's maiden really nice. And then he was at Corby Wood last Friday. The plan was just to float him round, let them come into the race, and then unfortunately in the first corner, horse broke in front of him, hampered him. So it became a lot harder than it should have been. But he got there in the end, and he showed that he had a good bit of heart about him. So he's still a bit green. He's only had 2 races. It's a step up in class tomorrow for him into the handicap class. So we'll see how he handles it. But he seems to be coming along nice, and he's getting better with every start.
Living Star runs in the top class race. They're starting in lines in that race. A real hot contest. Yeah,
it looks a really good race. Annie Vai has been going really well. She's in front of us. Plan B on his day is a class act. And then Miraculous is obviously done. You can't take away from Miraculous what he's done in his career. He looked a lot better last week at Tough Prince. So if he puts that kind of performance up, it should be a real hot race.
Absolutely. Now, Sarah, have you looked at the card, and what would your top picks in the card be?
This is the part where I admit that I haven't technically looked through the card. I've just printed it off and got it sitting in front of me. Right, one horse I do need to mention. I think she's really impressed me in a couple of qualifiers. Is in the first race, the 2-year-old pace, Oakwood Annabella. This horse has come out behind the other 2-year-olds from the stable, and I'm not sure what the reasoning for that is. Whether it's always been the plan to bring her out later, or whether she wasn't staked in the races that the other 2-year-olds have been in. But Oakwood Annabella, for me, in the qualifiers, has just looked very, very impressive. First qualifier looked very, very straightforward. And then the next qualifier came out, went faster again, straightforward, no problems. Running in mixed qualifiers with aged horses and going very competitively with them. She's caught a few people's eyes, so I think maybe I could be a little obvious with that selection. Comes out fresh. I know it possibly a little inexperienced, but like I say, those mixed qualifiers with older company tend to pan out a little bit, more like races do than the actual 2-year-old qualifiers. So Oakwood Annabella, I'm expecting her to go very well tomorrow, if not win that 2-year-old race. Of the other races, horses that impressed me last week, Kaya Camden, actually. Phil O'Neill last week was second with Kaya Camden and finished very, very strong. Drawn 6, so against the rail trip there, obviously traffic in front. Air Beach is the horse in front of Kaya Camden. Now, Air Beach is the horse that broke in front of Laneside Logic at Corby Wood last week and caused a little bit of traffic problems, as Grant referred to there. So Air Beach has gone better at York than he has at Corby Wood in the qualifiers and workouts that he's done there. If he can get away clean at the start, Kaya Camden may be able to take a nice little trip from him, because I know Air Beach is capable of doing quite reasonable times, around York in his warm-ups and things like that. He is capable of a turn of foot. So be interesting to see how that race starts off, because you have got some horses on the gate that maybe don't necessarily want to go forward or can go forward. Your likes of TJ Prime. Air Elegance is capable of a skip at the start of the race. Reese Louis is likely to go forward because he is very aggressive his first half, but drawn 5, whether Jack Fu chooses to go forward or tries to take back, I don't know. But Kaya Camden, I think, has a chance of running into the places in that race. Of the others, the trots, at the moment, for me, the trots are so wide open with such a variety of winners, it's impossible to pick a winner. Horses that have run well. Elka Dupuy put in a break the last 2 starts and got disqualified, which seems very out of character because it was a horse that was showing a lot of promise first couple of starts. Foudre Majuro went okay at Tia Prince, finishing second, so probably in with a chance there. Bank of Tedgy third at York. That race is wide open, so I'm not picking a horse in that. Of the 4th race, Oakwood Coral is a filly that I really, really like. This is her dropping back into novice company at the 3-year-old race. I thought she went very, very well behind Reed's Romance, and I still believe that had the draw been switched, she probably could have and would have won that 3-year-old race against Reed's Romance. She showed a great turn of foot out the gate. If she can get away in front of Dreamfair Duke, I think she's in with a massive chance there, but he is capable of finishing quite strong. So I think those 2 are probably the main protagonists in that race. Race 5, I know he's on a 40-yard trail, but the Lion King I thought was very impressive last week at York when he won. He's capable of staying on strong as well, and it is a stayers race, so that, you know, the trail possibly won't cause him as much problems as it would be if it was over a mile. So I'll stick with the Lion King there. Although James Macy Hallstar was very, very impressive last week as well for Andrew Cairns. Another trot, which again is wide open. Over a mile and a quarter there as well. Amadeo Djalma I was very impressed with last week. I thought Alan gave Amadeo a great drive, and he did agree. After the guys I said this in the review that nobody heard Darren, I said, great drive, Alan. He said, yes, it was. I thought, that's very, it's not very modest of you, Alan, at all. But it was a great drive. Race 7, obviously Grant's mentioned he's in Inside Logic there, who, you know, if on being on the gate as well, unlikely to get into any traffic problems, as what happened at Corby Wood. If Inside Logic goes the same way as he did 2 weeks ago at York, then I think it's going to be a very, very difficult horse to beat. You do have to keep an eye on horses like Lion's Attack from the Taff stable, because Dave Taff's horses are coming out looking in great condition and running well. Those showdowns in the race, great. Last 3 starts, great at York, but not on the gate this time, and you know, we'll have to rely on his stamina over his gate speed. And the last race is really hot, but I think if Living Star can do the time that he did a couple of weeks ago, you'll have 157 and 8. You know, even with horses like Miraculous behind him, I think Living Star's in with a massive, massive chance in that last race at York on tomorrow. It's on Saturday, but it is tomorrow. So yeah,
you always get more from Sarah Thomas. I asked her for 2 picks. What does she do? She goes through the card. Tremendous.
I can't help myself. I like the sound of my own voice.
Sarah, we've noticed in the last couple of weeks that we've switching the lights off at York, and you're still talking.
I know, but that was because John Love took so long. We got a delay early doors at York because John Love was on the mic for about half an hour, so it just pushed everything back. But no,
Charles,
I'll try and shorten it.
Charles, have you looked at the York card?
Yes.
What would your top picks be?
Inside Logic, because in my review last week of Corwood, I mentioned that he was destined for greatness.
Oh, big pressure, Grant.
Wow.
That's a fair statement, that one, Charles.
Yes. And I've also heard Sarah Thomas says he's a future muscle winner.
Did I say that? Did I? I don't know if I did say that, Graham. Now he's putting pressure on me because if I did say that, I've inadvertently put more pressure on you.
The horse has won 2 races, and he was quoted after York as being a big player in the Appleby and Musselburgh handicaps, and then he was destined for greatness after winning the Corby Wood. So absolutely no pressure whatsoever.
No.
Pressure higher.
Can I, before we end this chat, going back to Grant, I'd just like to get his take on the whip issue, because it's a hot subject in global thoroughbred and harness racing at the moment. What is your take on the whip? First of all, Grant, do you believe that the whip should be taken away, or do you believe that drivers must always have the whip?
I think that it can be a very useful tool for horses who don't behave or are very inexperienced. You can just help them on their way a wee bit. I think that is being overused. I know the rule is 8 times. Very rarely, I would say, does it people actually stick to 8 times. If you were to sit and count every video, almost everybody would probably have the whip took off them. There is certain manners, I think, that it can be used. I think you see people lifting their hand up high and hitting them and all that kind of thing, which makes it look a lot worse than it actually is. I think to take it off could cause more accidents than it could prevent, maybe. The horses, just young horses. We had one ourselves in the Laneside Logic race. He backed right off the gate and he had an inexperienced driver on him. And the horses never raced, whereas that horse could have been encouraged to go forward and put up a better show. It does look really bad when you see some videos of drivers, probably include myself in that at times as well. I'm not going to kid on that. It does happen. Taking it off though, I wouldn't say it's a good idea to take it off altogether. Maybe stricter rules, but taking off altogether, I wouldn't agree with.
And Sarah and Charles, do you have views on the whip?
I think the same as Grant. I think the rules should be stricter to keep but the drivers do need it at times, especially like sometimes with 2-year-olds and that as well. I mean, but the rules need to be stricter a bit.
I agree. I mean, I've never driven a horse in a race, so I can't say, I can't speak from that perspective. So obviously, what Grant's got to say there is valuable information really from somebody that's driving so regularly. And I think the message is kind of the same from a lot of drivers. It's to take the whip away entirely. I think could be to the detriment of some horses more than it would perhaps help the other horses that are on the wrong end of excessive use of the whip or excessive force with the whip. If the rules are there and they're strictly adhered to, and the stewards have got that in writing to be able to use that as something to discipline drivers with, I mean, you've got those fines and those bans that you can put into place as well. I think perhaps that would be sufficient to take away the whip altogether. Grant's mentioned you do get inexperienced horses, you get potentially unruly horses, and the whip isn't necessarily there to thrash them so that they will run through a brick wall for you. Sometimes it is just to keep them on the straight line. Sometimes it is to stop them from diving back off a start car or violently diving left or right because something catches their eye mid-race. So it is, for me, I think possibly a safety thing as well as a welfare thing. You do have to take into consideration the safety of the horses and drivers in races, as well as balance that against the welfare argument as well. I really do think that the advice from the drivers is absolutely invaluable, because these are the people that are doing this every week, every weekend. They're the ones that are putting themselves out onto racetracks to be travelling at 30 plus miles an hour on horses in amongst other horses. So their feedback, I think, is paramount on it.
Absolutely. I think this is something the BHRC must be doing. And I'm putting a proposal on the table at the next directors meeting, which is the week after next, about starting a full review about the use of the whip. We need feedback from the trainers, from the drivers. Personally speaking, you were talking about the tighter regulation. I'm not in favour of the punishment that's in place at the moment, i.e. penalties. They take the whip away from drivers. I'm not in favour of that, full stop. I'm more in favour of the thoroughbred view, and that's drivers will be suspended. Any infringement of misuse of the whip, I'm in favour of a structure of suspensions. But that's something we're going to be discussing over the coming months. But we need feedback. We need feedback.
I think that the stewards have been enforcing it more this year. I know there's been 3 or 4 already in the 2 meetings at Corby Wood been pulled in. I think York had a couple the last time I was there, had been pulled in. The rule is there. If the stewards enforce it, then there shouldn't be as many problems. It's the fact that you get 2 warnings, 3 warnings, 4 warnings. You only need 1.
Yeah.
And then it's constantly letting people away with it. If the rules there, enforce it. Yeah. And I think it is as it stands. You take it away just now. If that gets changed or not, I don't know. But if it take it away, just take it away. And then it's the only way to make people learn.
Well, as I say, we're going to start a full review. We want everyone's feedback on this. I personally in favour of suspensions for misuse of the whip, but we will be discussing it with the players. Grant, thank you very much for that. Thank you, guys. Valley coming up on Sunday, first race 2 o'clock, and I suggest, Sarah, in a couple of weeks' time ahead of the next Amman Valley meeting, we have an Amman Valley get together.
Yes, definitely. We should get on the phone to Trudy Launchbury and see if she's interested in getting involved. There's people who race regularly at Amman Valley as well who maybe be able to give us an insight, as Grant has done there, really, with how Corby Wood drives, and how tactical it could be as a track. It might be worthwhile speaking to maybe some of the regular drivers at Amman Valley, because it'll be a completely different kettle of fish to the way that York and Tier Prince drive, even though they are similar sized tracks. Another good card. 8 races at Amman Valley on Sunday as well, so a really, really strong card there. Busy day for all the people who are volunteering at Amman Valley. Are you going, Darren? Are you commentating there on Sunday?
Not this week. The next one. Not this week. Not this week.
There you go, Charles. Maybe you should get on the phone now to Trudy and see if you can do Amman Valley on Sunday. We'll drive down together. I'll take photos. You can commentate, and we'll take Grant in case there's any catch drives.
Don't forget Grant.
Road trip.
Listen, guys, this has been a real pleasure. Really enjoyed it, and may I wish you all an enjoyable and successful weekend. And thanks for being part of the Sulky Show today.